Hey guys, it's a new year and I'm going to give you my takes on 5 mods that I think really don't have to stick around. And at the end, I'll give you a couple that I still really like. Number 1, spacer lifts. I get it, lifting trucks is fun. We like the way they look. We like that we kind of fit bigger, more proportional tires at ride height. But I just don't think spacer lifts are the solution, especially if your suspension configuration is an independent suspension design, which is basically all half-ton and mid-size pickups. You're gonna have independent front suspension. What happens when you use a spacer lift is that it pushes your whole strut or coil over assembly down. Instead of simply lifting within your range of travel, you've relocated all of your travel downward to create that lift. So you still get full up travel and full down travel from your stock suspension setup, which is terrific. But what you typically run into are issues with other pieces of your suspension being maxed out and being at angles that they weren't designed to handle. Things like upper control arms, lower control arms, CV axles, tie rods are all going to start to experience angles that they wouldn't on factory suspension or on suspension that you fitted a coilover or a strut assembly to for lifting with a stiffer spring. Now, some of those coilover assemblies do give you slightly extended travel, and that can cause similar issues. But the point is, a spacer lift is a guaranteed way to move all of that travel downwards and change your suspension geometry on every single component. On independent suspension, most vehicles can probably get away with a 1/2 inch or a 1 inch spacer. Almost universally, I start to get nervous in the 2 to 3 inch range. That causes problems on most vehicles. You're also probably not going to experience improved handling or improved damping from your suspension. The spacer just moves everything around. It doesn't actually increase the performance of the vehicle. You're not going to be able to haul more weight without the front end sagging. Your vehicle's not going to be able to absorb bumps and potholes and difficult terrain better. You're really not seeing any performance gains there. What you are solving is the problem that your vehicle's short and now it's tall. Many people start with a spacer lift only to go back in there, tear apart their suspension again, and get the correct coilover or strut assembly for their vehicle. I'm a bit of a believer that a taller vehicle should also get upgraded components. If you get bigger tires, you probably need better brakes. If you have a taller truck, you probably need better suspension to control that vehicle. It's overall just a poor way to lift your vehicle. Okay, bed racks. Nobody's going to agree with me here. I'm totally okay with that. The only 2 things I can think of that are on the pro bed rack side, brand new bed racks are typically cheaper than brand new camper shells. Similarly, the bed rack is lighter and typically easier to remove by yourself. You don't need a second hand to remove it, although with a little bit of ingenuity, you can probably get your camper shell off by yourself as well. So if you're a person who hauls stuff with your truck regularly, if you're putting topsoil or bags of concrete in there every weekend, I get it, you want to be able to take that bedrock off as quickly as possible. But I know that 95% of you who decided to buy a Tacoma didn't buy it for what you can fit in the bed or what you can haul with it, and thus my confusion. Even with the shell on my pickup, it's still great for loading it up and moving things around. This past year I did 1 dresser, 1 fridge, and 1 gun safe. They all fit, they all put the tailgate up, and none of them contacted the back of the shell. Didn't have to take it off, it worked great. Most of the bed racks that you'll see are actually so low that you could put a rooftop tent on them without breaking the roof line. So what you can fit under a bed rack is typically smaller than what you can fit under a camper shell. You can lock a camper shell, you can lock things to a bed rack, and you can probably install one in a way that it's not easy to remove, but unless you have a tonneau cover, you're not really keeping anything locked in the bed out of sight. And if you choose to go with the tonneau cover, you're limited to things that are only as tall as the tonneau cover. With the bed rack, all of your gear is in sight. It's either bolted onto it or just laying in your bed underneath it. It's not protected from rain and it's not protected from dust. If you have a camper shell, you know that dust still gets in your bed. Now imagine going to a bed rack where there's literally nothing stopping your gear from being out in the element. Not to mention, there's no way you're sleeping under a bed rack in any kind of inclement weather, and you're certainly not sleeping under a tonneau cover.
What's wrong with this?
If you have a camper shell, you have an opportunity to make a very flexible setup, something where you can store things and where you can sleep at the same time. Now, I suppose if you wanted to lock things under a bed rack, you could go with a decked system or something like that. That is a very heavy system for one, and it's also a very tall system. You don't get a lot of storage out of it for how much space that takes up. It's a very well designed system for what it's designed to do. The idea was, can I fit all my gears and tools in a big plastic lockable box that I can still put a 4-wheeler on? And the answer is yes if you get a deck system, but practically speaking, you'll probably get more utility out of a system that has a camper shell and a tailgate that locks and then is not as tall on the bottom floor so that you can sleep in there if you want or store other things. The deck system is going to work for a couple of people who are watching this video, go get that. One last thing in the pro bed rack discussion. You can only sleep 2 people under a camper shell in most vehicles, and sometimes depending on how you have it set up, really only 1 person fits into that camper shell. So if you have a family and you're going camping, the sleeping in the camper shell discussion goes to the wayside. But getting something like a Go Fast camper, you could definitely sleep 4, 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top, maybe even 3 if you've got small kids. Or of course you can get a camper shell and put a rooftop tent on it for when you need it. Of course, that breaks the roof line, it might not fit in your garage, and there's gonna be MPG concerns. Very nuanced conversation. The last thing I implore of all you bed rack people, do you really want to travel around, stop at seedy gas stations, drive through the night, blah, 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 do all the things that we do when we go camping, hunting, fishing? Do you want to go into all these places with some of your most valuable equipment just bolted to your bed rack, hanging out in the open air for anybody to look at and steal? I've always thought it makes you look like a target to go park at a gas station that you've never been to, you don't know the area, and just have all this equipment out in the open. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The bed rack, while it looks like an easy option that's easy to install, easy to work with, just has so many compromises. This video is sponsored by Onx Offroad. As I look back on my 2024 trips and adventures, Onx has saved me a couple of times now. Firstly, on a scouting trip, I unexpectedly encountered a road that had completely washed out. But thanks to the offline maps that I had downloaded, I was able to pull those up, look around, and figure out where else I wanted to scout and how I was gonna get there. Another time, when I was planning a trip, a couple days before I was heading out, I thought to myself, I'll just check Onx just in case. And lo and behold, I'm on Onx Offroad, browsing through the app. I pull up one of my roads, and then that little blurb that it pulls up for information on the trail or the road that you just clicked on, it told me about a seasonal closure that would be affecting the road. Had I followed my original plan, that road would have been gated off, and I never would have made it anywhere near my original destination. Onx saved me the time for making that mistake out on my trip and helped me discover it at home and make a different plan. Onx Offroad helps me do research before I head out, and it's also helped me tremendously once I get out there and things inevitably go wrong. If you're looking to get an Onx membership, check out my discount code in the description for 20% off. Black or tinted headlight housing. There was a time, a long time ago, when you had an old vehicle and you wanted to make it look new, fancy, aggressive, nice, clean, whatever word you choose. And a way to do that was either to smoke your headlight housings or even black out the chrome and put in some kind of projector. All of those things, I think we can comfortably leave behind. The old factory chrome is the best look with clear headlight housings. Similarly, swapping to those aftermarket ones that simply have the blacked out housing or have some black trim inside the housing, I don't think they look good, and I've noticed that they're cheaply made. I was trying to rehabilitate one that we'd pulled off my friend's truck last year, and it just wasn't a well-made product. It was falling apart, water was leaking in, and it started to fog up. Number 4, not exactly a mod, but cheaping out on anything that you actually rely on when you're outside, when you're on your trips. If you're replacing a part that's integral to the reliability of your vehicle, do not do it with a cheap part. Get something that is quality for things that you are going to rely on and are critical to saving your life in an emergency. This could be as simple as recovery gear and tires. Having a failure on those can be anywhere from inconvenient to possibly life-threatening. I don't realistically care what kind of roof rack or stereo or air filter your vehicle has, but probably don't get the cheapest battery, the cheapest spark plugs, the cheapest headlights even. You're gonna need your headlights if you're driving a vehicle in the dark. Don't make those a cheap part of your vehicle. So when you're replacing a part, always evaluate, does this fit into the has to work all the time and should work all the time, or does this fit into the quality isn't super important, if this fails, I'll be fine category? Just think about that the next time you're swapping out something on your vehicle. Number 5, ditch lights. You guys can keep your ditch lights. I just don't. I don't like them. I don't know if it's the aesthetics that just do it in for me. In my humble opinion, a decent set of headlights and auxiliary lights somewhere on the front of your vehicle are probably going to cover and shine in all the areas that your ditch lights are going to as well. If that's not good enough for you, do it. Put them on the corner of your hood, on your mirror. I used to have one on the roof racks that's shown out. That was kind of cool and fun. How seriously are we taking ourselves here? Do we actually need light in that location, like way out at a 45? I guess some of us do. If it makes you happy, do it, but it's not for me. And if they go away in 2025, I won't miss them. And if you can see them from the driver's seat, I think that's annoying, that you could see the lights like through your windshield. I like when the lights are out on the front of the grill or out back on top of the roof, but you you do whatever. Things that can stay. Okay, one of these I already talked about, camper shell. Still a huge fan of the camper shell setup. It's my preferred way to go. I've said enough about it, but I think it could count in my 2 mods that I'm hoping everybody looks into picking up for 2025, because if your truck has any part recreational vehicle, not a work vehicle, then go ahead and get the camper shell. It's a tremendous way to add utility to the back of your vehicle. Number 2, Projector Retrofits. It's 2025. Projector Retrofits are cheap, they're reliable, they last a long time, and they're super easy to DIY, let alone all the companies that are making their own retrofits for your vehicle. If you have any kind of older vehicle, upgrading to retrofits is a great upgrade. I have videos on the ones I put together. This is my second set of retrofits that I put together by myself. I think they're high quality, I think they're easy to build, and I think they're really fun. Like I mentioned earlier, go with the chrome housings. I think that is the way to go. It makes the projector not stand out. It doesn't look trashy or chintzy. It just looks like your vehicle came with projectors from the factory. Projectors are far better than any halogen headlight and a reflector housing or any of those mini projectors, let alone don't do LEDs in your reflector housing. Please go get a set of projector retrofits. I'm into these something like $200 or $300, maybe $350 at the most. And they're definitely a smaller projector, but they're still far better than what I had before, way better than a halogen headlight. It's not even close. These ones I actually feel pretty confident in driving down the road just with those on. Lights that I had before on this old Tundra were not terrific at long distance. You know, in deer country going 55, 60 miles an hour, I would start to worry with the headlights that I had. These are much better, and when they're not good enough and when I'm all by myself, the auxiliary lights that I have paired with them are even better, and then I can just see everything. I can go as fast as I want. I really don't have any concerns about not being able to see a deer or any other kind of changing road condition in front of me and not having enough time to stop. So between nice big round pair of driving lights and projector retrofits, I think you really are covered in the lighting situation in terms of being able to see enough of what's in front of you. That's it. Welcome to 2025. Let me know what mods you guys have planned. Let me know if I missed something in this video or if you disagree with me. Be happy to hear you out on your opinion. I think for 2025, it's a little uncertain what we're adding to the pickup. I don't know what the future holds. I think maybe some creature comforts to the camper shell, some auxiliary lighting back there might be nice, but really I don't have any big plans. So let me know if there's anything you'd like to see, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks.